But by God, I didn't see this coming. Did anyone ever expect this? Was anyone expecting this to happen? This is Yu-Gi-Oh! History! Yu-Gi-Oh! Anime history was made today, people! Why? Because the girl beat the main character! The main girl took the main character and just, threw him into the ground and kicked him in the sand! All that shit, the waifu has won! This has never happened before. Okay, it happened in Arc 5 when, Yuzu beats Yuya in the second episode, but that was different because Yuya didn't know how to pendulum summon or anything like that. Also, performer pals suck. But also, this was crazy. They were going at it. They were busting out boss monsters left and right. This was like a duel where they were both bringing their A game, and she won! This is awesome! We live to see this day, people! I never thought it would come! So yeah, if y'all couldn't tell, the biggest aspect of this episode for most people is going to be remembered as Romin beat Yuga in a legit duel, and it was awesome, and we will get to it. But first and foremost, let us begin where the episode begins, in something we don't get a lot, and that is the Goha main office where the different executives and Hexagon, or I think they were just meant the big shots, are continuing to discuss what to do about rush duels, how to curve it, how to keep everyone under control, and how to keep their own influence going. And what's kind of interesting that's sort of been occurring to me with these scenes, especially in this episode where we got a fairly long going one, is there's kind of this satirical nature to this. Now, a lot of people are annoyed that Goha is not being presented as an actual threat, and to be fair, I am also at the point where I am kind of wanting to see a little more out of them. But I look at this and I'm kind of like, I think the point of these people is they're a parody of the Japanese government. Now, hear me out. The thing is that, like here, and probably most of the world, the Japanese people, to my understanding, don't have a overly great view of the government, especially people of the younger generations. Again, that's nothing new to us Americans, but for considering if you know anything about Japanese history, that is kind of a big deal and something the government's been trying to deal with. If any of you saw Shin Godzilla, you saw an example of kind of how the people of Japan view their government, where, yeah, it's a movie about a giant monster coming to destroy Tokyo, but above all else, it is a movie about the ineffectiveness of government, the fault of bureaucracy, that idea of the people who only care about their own egos or their own positions, and what happens when those people are in control. And in this opening scene, you kind of get that. Everyone in Goha is incompetent, and they're ego-driven, and they're mostly just doing this because the only real way they know how to function is to just have this sense of total control. That's not dissimilar from how people view our own government and all that. So I just feel like there is a little bit more going on here, and what's sort of interesting is the way they try and figure out, well, how do we continue control? We can't really do anything too bad because that will get the people against us, and rush duels have gotten too big and they're sort of gaining power and influence. It's almost sort of like rock and roll music. For those of you who don't know, when rock and roll started getting big, which might even be an influence in Romin now that I think about it, when rock and roll got big, a lot of different groups, including some government groups, were trying to curb it and get people not to like rock music, but the children just loved it, and they made it grow, and it became what it's saying. It just became too much for the government to control. That's kind of what rush duels are. It's literally just this thing that they've been trying to stop, but they just can't. As long as kids want something new and want to experience something different and move forward, there will be the need for rush duels, which is kind of what brings us into the next part of the episode. We meet Romin's idol, Princess G or whatever. She is now introduced. Cool design. Her hair kind of reminds me of Trix yogurt, but that's neither here nor there. And they want her to be the symbol of anti-rush duels, the Goha duels. They want to bring that to the world. Not unlike how the Japanese government kept using anime and other mediums to try and get the Japanese people to have babies, if you think about it. Some of you may think I'm going too far with this, but the idea for these jokes had to come from somewhere. So yeah, so then she's like, well, I like rush duels. Well, you can't like rush duels if you want to be part of Goha, and since we control anything, fuck you. And so she's kind of forced to leave. Again, you see that in a lot of countries. Like, if someone who has worked with the government or helped promote the government, if they kind of want to differ away, they will just dump them. So yeah, so then we cut to see that everyone is back at Goha's 7th. They do the classic joke of the student council office is like got grass and shit growing on it, so they gotta clean it up, where Romin then finds out that her idol has been dumped. And you know what? I kind of do feel sorry for Romin in this entire thing. Because this show has made these characters feel so real, I genuinely believe it when she's not quite sure what to do anymore. If she wants to keep promoting rush duels, it's going to affect her idol and it's going to affect her dream. That's kind of a big deal that Romin has like a actual life and identity outside the main plot and our main characters. You look at the Yu-Gi-Oh girls, even the ones who do a good job with that typically lose that sense of self-identity as the show continues. But no, Romin has her own arc and her own storyline and her own dreams in life, and like what many people experience, what you want out of life is not always going to be as easy as just go after it. Sometimes your different goals and dreams will collide, and that's kind of what happens here. If she keeps up with rush duels, she can't relate to her idol anymore, but at the same time, she doesn't want to give that up either. She's fallen in love with this and likes being around our other characters and getting involved in all the adventures. It's kind of that interesting idea that rush duels have grown beyond just these kids and their antics. It's becoming a huge deal that is having an impact on the world around them. That's kind of what this show does for plot progression, and it does to a certain extent make sense for what they're trying to do here. So then Roman's like, I'm done with rush duels. Let's have one more rush duel, Yuga. And if any of you have ever been to locals and hear anyone say that, you know that is gonna end up being bullshit. No, but yeah, they have the duel and it's fun. Like, it's genuinely a really entertaining duel. I like Yuga uses a bunch of the monsters we've only ever seen him use once. That's kind of nice and fun and different. Romin busts out a lot of big shit. She relies on drawing to save the day. We all know what that's like. And I kind of like the idea that it's sort of mixed in really well with the guitarist lady telling Mimi, like, you know, this is why rush duels are important and I want to support it. And the future only gets better when we try to move forward and try to embrace new things and all that. And I think that's a very good message, and I think it's kind of the message of this whole show. This is a show about an inventor and a tinkerer and kind of the people he gets along the way to help him try and, like, invent and tinker with the world. And I think that's kind of really cool. So naturally, it goes how you think. Roman just winning is really fucking cool. You expect Yuga to win, and Roman just be like, okay with it, whatever. No, she fucking beats him. This is a guy we've seen take on all these crazy opponents, and he loses to one pink-haired waifu. It's kind of cool. And so then she wins, and all is right with the world, and the guitarist lady leaves to pursue new adventures. Will she come back one day? Probably. Where does it go from here? I don't know. But all in all, I really like what they are doing here. I really like the idea that there is a plot and there is a story, but they're trying to go about it in its own unique way and present its ideas in a different way. And I find it refreshing. Not everyone does, but it works for me. So that was Yu-Gi-Oh! 7s this week. Tell me your thoughts about it in the comments section below. And now, for the TCG question of the week. I actually have one prepared this time. According to this weekend's tournament results using the new ban lists, Dragon Link has essentially just replaced Virtual World as the combo deck of choice. Many other decks came back into the forefront now that the format is not so oppressive. So my question to you is, of what is becoming strong, what are you the most excited for to see its re-rise? I'm kind of curious to see where Dragon Link goes from here, and more importantly, what happens to Red Eyes Dragoons, as he will now be the big boss monster of choice for a lot of these decks. So tell me what you think about that below. And as always, click to like, click to subscribe, and join me next week where apparently Rook is going to make people paint things.